How to play fingerstyle or fingerpicking guitar, Book 2, Lesson 4. Playing scales and multiple picking on one string for everyone. If you're new to this channel, or if you haven't done already, I recommend you downloading the PDFs for this course. They're completely free, and I'll put a link down below in the description on how to get them. Or if you prefer, you can go straight to www.ebooks4guitar.com and click on the link on the homepage. And if you have downloaded the PDFs, I'd recommend you going back and re-downloading them, because Book 2 has had a number of changes. And you should also keep the download registration email, so you can go back and re-download the ebooks if you have to. This lesson is quite different to the previous lessons in the Fingerstyle guitar course, in that there's something in this lesson for every capability, even though we're in Book 2. And the reason for this is that this week we'll be taking a look at scales. And scales are really important to every guitarist, no matter what style of guitar you want to play. Firstly then, we'll take a look at a couple of really common scales, and then we'll look at how to play them fingerstyle. If you know any of the scales, you can skip on to the next one until you find one you don't know. If you know them all, just skip straight on to the fingerstyle part of the lesson. Scale 1. The major scale. The major scale is probably the most important scale you can learn, because it's used in a lot of theory, and many other scales actually come from this scale, including the minor scale. So if you don't know this scale, or if you don't know any scales, I would concentrate on this one, just trying to play it smoothly and trying to remember it. The major scale we'll be looking at today is the A major scale, and it gets its name A from the fact it's played on the 5th fret. And the 5th fret of the bottom E string, or the top E string actually, is A. So if we were to start this scale on the 3rd fret, it would be a G major. Or if we were to start this scale on the 7th fret, it would be a B major. And that's because it always gets its name from the first note you play on the bottom E string. In this regard, it's very much like a bar chord, in that you can move the scale shape up and down the neck to find the key signature you're looking for. Here we've got two shapes of the A major scale, and they are exactly the same scale, just played in a different way. If I was to play these scales one after the other, you would hardly be able to tell the difference between the two scales. If you're new to scales, I'd recommend you learning this first scale and try to get it as uniform and clean as you can. And then skip on to the end of this lesson where you can learn how to play it fingerstyle. If you already know the first scale, you might want to try the second scale, which, whilst it's the same sounding as the first scale, this second scale is very popular amongst people who like to play fast guitar solos. Because there's 3 notes per string, it's easier to play this scale quickly and keep the rhythm uniform. Right, let's go through the first A major scale for those of you who don't know it. And if this scale is new to you, it's better learning it just going up the scale first, or in other words, just try line 1 of the tablature. Hopefully people watching this video can read tablature or read scale maps, but if you can't, just for this first scale, I'll go through it step by step. Play the 5th fret of the bottom E string with the second finger. Play the 7th fret of the bottom E string with the 4th finger. Play the 4th fret of the A string with the 1st finger. Play the 5th fret of the A string with the 2nd finger. Play the 7th fret of the A string with the 4th finger. Play the 4th fret of the D string with the 1st finger. Play the 6th fret of the D string with the 3rd finger. Play the 7th fret of the D string with the 4th finger. Play the 4th fret of the G string with the 1st finger. Play the 6th fret of the G string with the 3rd finger. Play the 7th fret of the G string with the 4th finger. Play the 5th fret of the B string with the 2nd finger. Play the 7th fret of the B string with the 4th finger. Play the 4th fret of the top E string with the 1st finger. And finally, play the 5th fret of the top E string with the 2nd finger. If you're new to the guitar or to scales, you might think that the fingering positions aren't important, or you find it easier using different fingers. However, it's really important you use the correct fingers. And if you take a look at the scale map, you can see that the entire 4th fret is the 1st finger, the entire 5th fret is the 2nd finger, the entire 6th fret is the 3rd finger, and the entire 7th fret is the 4th finger. So, if you were to lay your fingers down across the strings from the 4th fret on, you'd see that the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th fingers more or less lay on the frets they should be playing. And what this will mean in the long run is that you'll be able to play this scale or any other scale a lot more smoothly and quickly by using the correct fingers, because you don't need to move the hand so much. If the scales are new to you or you're learning them for the first time, don't worry too much about what the picking hand is doing. Just concentrate on the hand on the neck until you're reasonably confident with the scale. And then once you're confident with the scale, we'll move on to the picking hand. Let's see and hear that scale being played again, but this time with a metronome with a 2-bar introduction at 70 beats per minute double time. So in effect, it's 140 beats per minute. Right, let's hear that one last time at the same speed with a 2-bar introduction. If you're ready, try playing along with it, but otherwise just listen to it to get used to the sound. If you're feeling adventurous and you want to speed up any of the scales you learn in this video, I'll put the metronome beats at various speeds at the end so you can try practicing with them. Right, let's move on and take a look at the second pattern for the major scale. This major scale pattern is the harder pattern to play, and that's because there's a big reach involved. This pattern is still quite popular because you play 3 notes on every string, and this makes it easier to speed it up and keep a uniform rhythm. But even if you don't need that, it's a useful scale to learn because it can be used as an exercise to help develop stretch. Something that you might find useful to know as you're practicing this scale is the fact that there's 2 ways of fingering the 7th fret on the bottom E string and the A string. And you can either finger that note with the 3rd finger or the 2nd finger, whichever you prefer. I'll be playing it with the third finger today. Let's see that being played then. So here's the A major scale, pattern 2, being played with a 2-bar introduction. Here's that pattern of the A major scale being played again. At the same speed, 70 beats per minute, double time, with a 2-bar introduction in case you want to try and play along. If you're still learning the first pattern, you could actually play that one along if you wanted to. Here that is again, one last time with a 2-bar introduction in case you want to try and play along. Scale 2, the natural minor scale. This scale isn't quite as important as the major scale, but it's not far behind. And this scale also has 2 patterns. However, with this scale, both patterns have slight complications. With the first pattern, you have to change fingering position when you get to the G string, and then return to the previous fingering position. And with the second pattern, you have a big stretch on the D string, similar to the stretches you had to do for the second pattern of the major scale. Here's pattern 1 being played at 70 beats per minute, double time. And here that is again, with the 2-bar introduction, at the same speed. If you want to try and play along with it, you can. Whilst the sound of the scale is still fresh on your mind, let's move straight on to the second pattern at the same speed with a 2-bar introduction. You can just listen to it first if you want. If you're ready, let's try playing the minor scale pattern 2 at 70 beats per minute double time with a 2-bar introduction. But if you prefer just to learn the first pattern, you could play that one along as well, as the 2 patterns should sound exactly the same. Here that is again, one last time with a 2-bar introduction. Play whichever pattern you prefer. Right, let's move on to the last scale, which should be the easiest. Scale 3, the A minor pentatonic scale. This scale is undoubtedly the easiest of the 3 scales, but this time we're going to introduce some techniques with the picking hand. But before we do that, let's learn to play the scale properly first. Looking at this scale, you'll notice there's only 2 notes played on every string. And the fingering is as easy as 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4. If you take a look at the fingering for this scale, you'll notice you never have to use the second finger. And this is because of that rule I mentioned earlier, where each finger has its own fret. So you can see the 5th fret is played with the 1st finger. The 6th fret would be played with the 2nd finger, but there are no 6th fret notes. The 7th fret is played with the 3rd finger, and the 8th fret is played with the 4th finger. Right, let's see the A minor pentatonic scale being played. Let's see that being played again, at the same speed, with a 2-bar introduction. If you think you're ready, try and play along with me. Right, let's build on that scale now. If you've got a plectrum, try picking it using down, up, down, up, down, up strokes. Here that is being played, so you can see what it looks like. And here that is again, with a 2-bar introduction, in case you want to try playing along with it. Now, this is how all the scales should be played. Even if they've got some strings with 3 notes and some strings with 2 notes, they should always be down, up, down, up, down, up. But we'll look at this in another course. But as this course is about fingerstyle, let's move on to the fingerstyle exercises. Exercise 1. This exercise is really just a continuation of what we've just been looking at, because we're using the A minor pentatonic scale. But this time, rather than using alternating plectrum directions, we'll use our index and middle finger, and we'll alternate between the 2 fingers. Here's what that looks like being done. You might need to pause the video at this stage and just practice that for a minute. But if not, here it is being done at the 70 beats per minute double time with a 2-bar introduction. Try and play along if you think you're ready. And here that is again, one last time with a 2-bar introduction, in case you want to try and play along. Exercise 2. For this exercise, we'll be using the first scale we learnt today, which was the A major scale in the first shape. But this time, try playing it using the finger picking technique we've just looked at, where we'll play the scale index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, etc. Before trying exercise 1, just watch it being done, paying particular attention to the picking hand. Before playing along, you'll probably need to pause the video here and practice it for a bit. But when you're ready, here it is being played at 70 beats per minute double time with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is one last time in case you want to play along with a 2-bar introduction. Exercise 3. This really shouldn't take much explanation, because all you're doing is the same finger picking pattern as the previous exercise, but this time with the A minor scale. I'll be using the first pattern for this exercise, but you can use whichever pattern you're most comfortable with. Here it is being played at 70 beats per minute double time with a 2-bar introduction. Here that is again at the same speed with a 2-bar introduction. Try and play along if you think you're ready. Here that is again one last time in case you want to try playing along. Exercise 4. For this exercise, I've thrown in a curved ball, but if you prefer not to, you don't need to do this exercise. It's just a bit of variety. With this exercise, we're playing the C major scale, which is exactly the same shape as the A major scale, but it starts on the 8th fret. Now, with some guitars, you can't actually play this high, because you get to the heel of the guitar, where the neck meets the body. So you might have to transpose it and play it in the 5th fret, or in other words, just play the A major scale. And with this exercise, we're playing primary, index, primary, index, primary, index. Now, this isn't a commonly used finger picking pattern, but it's good to be aware of it and just practice it once or twice. So, here it is being played at the usual speed with a 2-bar introduction. Here that is again with a 2-bar introduction in case you want to play along. But if you're playing it in A major, it will sound pretty horrid because we'll be playing in two different keys. So to practice it, you'd be better using the metronome beats at the end of this video. Exercise 5. Before we start looking at this exercise, I'll remind you of what I said at the beginning of this lesson, and that's that there's something for everyone in this particular lesson. And this exercise, exercise 5, is very hard. So if you struggle with it or just can't play it, don't worry. This is way ahead of what you should be playing at this point in the course. I've included it for those of you who enjoy a challenge or have been playing the guitar for a bit longer. Right, let's start with an overview of exercise 5. And looking at it, you'll notice that all the chords are very simple ones. There's no complications in the chords. And there's a repeat at the end of the 4th line that takes you back to the beginning. So you'd play the first 4 lines twice. The complications in this exercise come from the fingerpicking hand. And looking at the fingerpicking pattern, you'll notice it's primary, index, middle, repeated. And the primary is moving around across the strings, whereas the index and middle stay on one string. And this is quite difficult to achieve if you've never tried it before. So, to get you started, let's take a look at the first line, which is all on the C chord. And firstly, we'll get rid of the index and middle finger notes, which are all the top E string, and just concentrate on the primary or the thumb. Here's the primary finger part being played for the first line, and I'll repeat it. And we'll do this so you can get used to moving the thumb around. You'll notice it's very slow at 70 beats per minute, but there's a good reason for that. That'll become clear as you go through the lesson. Now, let's try that again, just the primary part with a 2-bar introduction at 70 beats per minute. You might need to practice that for a bit before moving on. And if you do, just pause the video here and try and get that primary part nice and accurate and clear. Here that is again anyway with a 2-bar introduction, in case you want to try and play along with it. Right, I'll introduce now the index and the middle fingers, but I'll continue just playing the first line repeated. So here's what that sounds like being played with a 2-bar introduction. Really, this exercise is better being played without a drum beat or a metronome, but I'm playing it with a metronome here, so you can follow what I'm doing more easily. Here's the first line being repeated again, playing all the finger parts, with a 2-bar introduction. If you think you're ready, try playing along, but don't worry if you can't. Once you feel you can play that first line okay, you can move on through the rest of the tune. Throughout the whole tune, you're constantly playing index and middle on the top E string, and the only notes that change are in the primary part. Here's the whole exercise being played right the way through without the repeats, with a 2-bar introduction. Here that is again at the same speed with a 2-bar introduction, in case you want to try and play along. And here that is one last time. Up next will be the metronome beats, so I'll sign out now. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're new to the channel, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. And it also helps to support the channel so I can make new videos. If you need the tablature for the lessons, visit www.ebooks4guitar.com, and there you can get them completely free with no strings attached. Thanks again for watching.